Hello and welcome. Tonight, the immediate past head of service of Rivers State, Mr. George Nweke, says he was not pressured to resign, but was led by his conscience instead. President Bola Tinubu condemns killings of traveling hunters in Edo State, directs a thorough investigation into the incident. The Kano State Police Command bans all Durbar activities during the 2025 Eid al-Fitr Salah festivities, citing security concerns. And at least 144 people die in Myanmar after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake felt by Thailand and other neighboring countries.
In On Business, Nigerian Economic Summit Group CEO backs duty exemption on pharmaceuticals, calls for strict monitoring.
On sports news tonight, barely a month to the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations, CAF awards the hosting rights to Egypt after the previous host, Cote d'Ivoire, withdrew.
Is concerned. Well, the immediate past head of service of Rivers State, Mr. George Nweke, who resigned on Monday, April the 24th this year, has broken his silence, saying his resignation was due to his conscience and not under duress. Speaking exclusively to Channels Television, Mr. Nweke alleges that he is a witness to the demolition of the Rivers State Assembly complex and the suspended Chief of Staff of Governor Siminalayi Fubara on the instruction of the governor. Now, he applauds the president for the state of emergency in Rivers, as the state has been peaceful since the appointment of the sole administrator, Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas, and urges the NLC, that's the Nigeria Labour Congress, to call its members to order in Rivers State and not embark on a strike to avoid an escalation.
I was not sacked. Neither was I pressured to resign. I did so willingly, from the depth of my heart. It all started with the State House of Assembly, where the governor, Siminalayi Fubara, directed his chief of staff to burn down the assembly in a way to avert the suspected impeachment. That evening, Edison was in Government House with many of his boys, including the former chairman of Obiakpo, one Mr. Chijoke Ihunwo. I was there with them when a bag of money was handed over to Edison for that operation. A day after that incident, I almost resigned. But I was very scared because I know the power of a sitting governor. And he knew that I'm aware of the whole plan. Let me draw the attention of Nigeria Labour Congress to call the chairman of the Rivers State chapter to order to avoid politicizing labor. I am privy to several private meetings between the governor and the labor leaders in the state, and largesse that accompanied each meeting to compromise the labor union.
Well, that was Mr. George Nweke, the immediate past head of service of Rivers State, on his resignation on March the 24th of this year. Moving on now to Benue State, where the State House of Assembly has passed a resolution to approach the Supreme Court of Nigeria for interpretation of Section 292(1)(a)(11) as it pertains to the removal of a chief judge following the National Judicial Council's intervention halting the removal of Justice Maurice Ikpembese. The House took the decision during plenary presided by the Speaker, Hyacinth Dajo, followed a motion of urgent public importance moved by the Majority Leader of the House, Mr. Sita Fisir, informing the House that after securing a two-thirds majority in February the 18th this year in support of recommendation to remove Justice Ikpembese, the exercise is still pending.
The Benue State House of Assembly had on February the 18th, 2025, passed a motion to remove Justice Maurice Ikpembese as the state chief judge over allegations of abuse of office, corruption, and other issues. The removal follows a letter from Governor Hyacinth Dajo and was passed by a majority vote. However, condemnations followed, halting the process. At plenary, the Majority Leader raised a motion on the issue, suggesting that the National Judicial Council currently has no role in the removal of the Chief Judge.
Concerned that after public tongue lashing of the Benue State House of Assembly, the House of Representatives on Wednesday, 26 March 2025, passed for second reading a bill to give National Judicial Commission (NJC) a role in the removal of Chief Judge. This means ab initio that the National Judicial Service, the Judicial Commission (NJC) has no role in the removal of Chief Judge, as clearly stated in Section 2921A2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended.
The House agreed to approach the Apex Court immediately for a proper interpretation of the section of the Constitution.
This is a game of numbers. There is a game of numbers. We have 11 to pass the budget. We have more than 11. So how will the National Assembly come and take over the State Assembly? Simple because some members are suspended. So I don't think we don't need much time on this. The Benue State House of Assembly, we are going to bag. We're not only going to bag, we're going to bite. We're not only going to bite, we're going to even break bones.
The House, in a motion moved by Mr. Kennedy Angbo, lawmaker representing Otukpo Akpa, on behalf of the Zone C caucus of the State Assembly, condemns and distances the group from the call by Mr. Philip Agbese, who represents Ado, Okpoku, and Ogbadigbo Federal Constituency for the National Assembly to take over the functions of the Benue State House of Assembly.
Informed that the Benue State House of Assembly is functioning properly and effectively, and nothing close to the situation had risen in the House to warrant the National Assembly to come and take over the functions of these hallowed chambers.
The House also summoned the leadership of the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, JUSUN, Benue State Chapter, to appear before its leadership on Thursday, the 3rd of April 2025, to explain in detail the reason for the prolonged strike which has paralyzed the judicial system in the state.
In Plateau State, no fewer than 11 persons, including a pregnant woman, her husband, and a 10-year-old girl, have been killed, with some others sustaining serious injuries in an attack by suspected assailants on Rui village of Bokos local government area of the state. A statement by the chairman of Bokos Cultural Development Council, Pharmacum Fudang, says some persons suspected to be herders launched an attack on Thursday night during a wake keep ceremony and service of songs for an elderly woman in the community. The statement adds that the attackers took advantage of the solemn occasion to unleash terror on the mourners, leading to the killings and the injuries on some residents of that community. The Cultural Association expresses its concerns on the land-grabbing agenda of the attackers and calls for a holistic approach from political, traditional, community and religious leaders to help address the extremist attacks and protect vulnerable people. Reactions have continued to trail the affirmation of a death sentence by the Supreme Court on Sunday Jackson, a farmer, for the killing of a herdsman, Buba Ardo Baworo, in Newman local government of Adamawa State. Various groups from across the country, as well as Adamawa, the home state of Jackson, are appealing to Governor Umaru Fintiri to step in and use the power of his office to save Jackson from being executed.
It's a bumpy drive on the road leading to Dong, a farming community in Damsa local government area of Adamawa State, a few kilometers from Yola, the state capital. Channel's television crew arrived at the community and head to the residence of the traditional leader to intimate him on the reason for the visit. Speaking in Hausa language, he laments the Supreme Court's judgment on Sunday Jackson.
When this incident happened, we went to the family of the deceased headsman to condole with them over what happened, stressing it was not an intentional act. We farmers and the headsmen forgave each other after going through all this, only for him to be sentenced to death.
Channel's television proceeds to the residence of Sunday Jackson. According to sources, Jackson, who is 29 years old, a farmer and a student, is married and has 2 children. Since his incarceration in 2015, His wife has left the community and said to have remarried. At the family compound of Sunday Jackson, there were gloomy faces, looking confused and wondering how a case of self-defense has suddenly turned into a verdict of murder and death by hanging. A heap of refuse dump is what is left of the spot that was once Jackson's hut, surrounded by other huts. His aunt and his immediate younger sister lament the turn of events and the impact on the community.
The whole Dong, not Dong alone, the whole villages surrounding us, they were crying because we don't know this boy with this with bad habit.
And we are here to crying about our brother, that we're missing him. That we're missing him.
The 70-year-old father of late Buba Ardo, in an interview with Channels Television, describes the killing of his son as unfortunate. He also adds his voice appealing to the governor of Adamawa State, Umar Fintiri, to save Sunday Jackson from the hangman's noose.
What I'm saying is that vengeance is never satisfied. My wish is that he should be forgiven because my son is already gone. These incidents happened years ago, and we as a family, we have put that behind us.
As the Dong community continue to lament over the fate of their kingsman, the Gongola People's Forum, a social-cultural group, and the traditional ruler of Bachama Kingdom have also lent their voices, urging the Adamawa State governor to intervene and save the life of Sunday Jackson.
We are calling upon Governor Umar Fintiri to grant a pardon to Mr. Sunday Jackson and save him from the sentence of death by hanging.
Bachama Traditional Council will not relent in its effort to ensure that Sunday Jackson receives justice through prerogative of mercy and clemency from the right quarters.
It could be recalled that Sunday Jackson was working on his farm in Numa local government area of Adamawa State when a herdsman, Buba Ardo, allegedly herded his cattle into Sunday's farm to feed on his crops. When Sunday confronted him, he pulled out a knife and a fight ensued, resulting in the herdsman's death. Efforts to get reactions from the Fulani umbrella group, Mayati Allah, did not yield results as they declined to comment on the Supreme Court's ruling that sentenced the farmer to death by hanging. The police public relations officer at Adamawa Command also says it is not within his jurisdiction to speak as it is already a judicial matter.
So let's now bring you up to speed over the killing of some traveling hunters in Edo State, where President Bola Tinubu has condemned the murder of the traveling hunters intercepted by local vigilantes in the Uromi community of Esan North local government of Edo State. Now, the president, in a statement by a special advisor on information and strategy, Mr. Bayo Ononuga, expresses shock at the dastardly act which occurred yesterday, and has directed the police and other security agencies to help conduct swift and thorough investigations into the matter and punish the suspected culprits. While commiserating with the families of the affected victims, President Tinubu noted that jungle justice has no place in Nigeria and all Nigerians have the freedom to move freely in any part of the country. In part two, after the break, President Bola Tinubu promises to continue to work hard and pray for the peace and stability of the nation. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you have just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. The immediate past head of service of River State, Mr. George Nweke, says he was not pressured to resign, but was led by his conscience instead. President Bola Tinubu condemns killings of traveling hunters in Edo State, directs a thorough investigation into the incident. Kano State Police Command bans all Dorba activities during the 2025 Eid al-Fitr Salah festivities, citing security concerns. And at least 144 people die in Myanmar after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake. Killings in Edo State, where the Northern States Governors Forum has already condemned the murder of travelers from northern Nigeria in Uromi community of Edo State. Of course, Well, a statement by the chairman of the forum and governor of Gombe State, Inuwa Yahaya, described the attack as a gross violation of human rights, stressing that extrajudicial violence is entirely unacceptable and must be unequivocally condemned with utmost severity. That the forum expressed its deepest condolences to the families of the victims and all those affected by the tragic incident. According to Governor Yahaya, it is imperative that the relevant authorities conduct a full and thorough investigation into what he called the senseless act, adding that the perpetrators must be identified, arrested, and brought to justice. Staying with the Edo murder, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, has strongly condemned the violent mob action carried out against a group of travelers by a local vigilante group in Uromi, Edo State. Now, the police boss, in a statement by the force spokesperson, Olumoyiwa Adejobi, has directed the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of the Force Criminal Investigation Department, FCID, Sadiq Abubakar, to take over the case and ensure a thorough, impartial, and expedited investigation, and he assures the public that the Nigeria Police remains committed to upholding the rule of law and will not tolerate any form of unlawful killings or extrajudicial actions under any guise. While condemning the resort to jungle justice, the Nigeria Police reiterates that the unlawful possession of firearms remains a criminal offense under Nigerian law. Individuals in possession of unlicensed firearms are then advised to report to the nearest police station to surrender such weapons or initiate the appropriate action. Let's head to Kano now, where the State Police Command has placed a ban on all Durbar activities during this year's Salah festivities to mark Eid al-Fitr, citing security concerns and the need to maintain public order. The announcement was made by the Commissioner of Police, Ibrahim Bakori, shortly after a security meeting with other sister agencies at the Bompai Police Headquarters. According to him, security assessments have revealed growing tensions and potential threats associated with the Durbar, which could lead to unrest.
The command, in liaison with other security agencies, have been obtained and assessed the security situation in the state, especially the rising tension and uncertainties around Durbar activities, Hawan Salah, particularly the tendency to plunge the state into anarchy. Made necessary consultations with the state government, the parties, and other critical stakeholders as part of collective commitment to sustain the peace and security. A ban has been placed on all Durbar, Hawan Salah activities throughout the state during the Salah celebrations.
Now, the Commissioner of Police, FCT Command, CP Adewale Ajao, has unequivocally condemned the unprovoked attack on security operatives by members of the proscribed Islamic movement of Nigeria, also known as the Shiites. A statement by the FCT Police Public Relations Officer, Josephine Ade, says about 2:20 p.m., the FCT Police Command received a distress call reporting a violent assault on security personnel by the IMN members, armed with firearms, cutlasses, catapults, sticks, stones, petrol bombs, and other lethal weapons in the Banex area of Aminu Kano Crescent in Wuse 2 of Abuja. The statement explains that upon swift deployment to the scene, police and security personnel encountered intense gunfire from the attackers, resulting in the serious injury of 3 security operatives who were promptly transported to the National Hospital, where one was pronounced dead. The statement adds that 19 suspects have already been arrested in connection with the incident, while others managed to escape. The statement further adds that normalcy has since been fully restored and investigations are ongoing to ensure that all perpetrators are brought to justice. President Bola Tinubu has promised that he will continue to work hard and pray for the peace and stability of the country. In an interview with reporters after the special Jumat prayer session for Nigeria and in commemoration of his birthday at the National Mosque, the president thanked God for the grace for seeing his 73rd birthday. President Tinubu explained that the safety and welfare of citizens remain uppermost on his mind and prayer list. The Jumat was attended by the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, The Deputy Senate President, Senator Barau Jibrin, National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, ministers, service chiefs, and some members of President Tinubu's family.
And give thanks to Almighty Allah that has protected us so far and continue to answer our prayers, accept our ibadah. That is key and very important to all of us. A prayer for our country to stabilize, keep in peace, and safeguard our people, all the citizens. The word for all of this is hard work. You work harder, you pray harder. And that's the inspiration that I got from all of this. We thank God Almighty that at this stage, we are in it.
President Bola Tinubu. In Lagos, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu says he's on a mission to promote healthcare excellence in the state. Well, the governor was speaking when he visited the Prostate Clinic, a pioneering robotic institution in the fight against prostate cancer run by Professor Kingsley Ekweme. Our correspondent Kelly Agiga now reports.
The Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, is received by the chairman of the Prostate Clinic Nigeria, Alhaji Francis Ogboro, and by Professor Kingsley Ekweme. He's then led to the Lady Caroline Theatre, where he gets ready to tour the facility. The governor then learns about the clinic's cutting-edge technologies and innovative approaches to patient care, including the Da Vinci robot, which operated its first patient in Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa earlier this week.
Any operation, not just prostate, we can do bowel cancer, anything, kidney cancer, everything.
And then it's the turn of the governor.
Anything, I can bring the robot down for you. No impossibility with the robot. It doesn't get tired. It can operate for 100 years without being tired.
The Lagos State Governor also makes a stop to see a patient who was operated less than 24 hours ago. Done with the tour, Governor Sanwo-Olu commends Professor Ekweme and his team for their outstanding work in prostate cancer treatment and research, promising to strengthen healthcare systems in Lagos State, including partnerships.
Coming here, we always hear about robotic prostate surgery, to now have it resident here in Lagos and to be operated by a Nigerian, right? I think it's phenomenal. And so I'm also here so that we can use his own skills and his expertise to be able to also replicate in a no distant future in public hospital, so that over time we can reduce the total costs of interventions like this. Because that's the whole idea, because it will be expensive, but we can reduce once you see economic of scale, right? And they can continue to train and retrain our people and ensure that they have a reason to stay back.
An elated Professor Ekweme appreciates the governor's visit, pledging to commit to improving healthcare delivery in Lagos.
To have the executive governor, His Excellency, come to visit us today, it's both inspiring and humbling for me. I'm open to any leadership the governor brings in terms of advancing surgery for Lagos State. I know how passionate His Excellency is in terms of developing technology and healthcare, quality healthcare for the citizens of Lagos State. We are lucky to have His Excellency as the governor, and I share his dream, his aspirations, his ambitions, and I will do everything within my capacity to help if the governor wishes for me to do that.
The Lagos State Governor's visit to the Prostate Clinic Nigeria highlights the importance of collaboration in healthcare delivery. Such partnerships will possibly make a difference in the lives of Lagosians and Nigerians. Kelly Egiga, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigerian Economic Summit Group CEO backs duty exemption on pharmaceuticals, calls for strict monitoring. That's in business news. Please join us again. Welcome back. So let's head to the nation's capital now, where Gloria Umezoke is standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Gloria.
Many thanks, Ayo. Here in the nation's capital, the Minister of the FCT, Mr. Nyesom Wike, has said that criticisms will not stop him from supporting the judiciary. Mr. Wike stated this during a courtesy visit by eminent members of the body of benchers of Nigeria, led by its chairman, Chief Adegboyega Awomolo. According to the minister, provision has already been made in the supplementary budget of the FCT for the construction of the body of benchers office complex.
The chairman, Body of Benchers of Nigeria, Chief Adegboyega Awolomo, is leading this high-level delegation, including the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Chief Olukayode Ariwola, 7 practitioners, live benchers from different states, among others, to commend the minister's responsiveness to judiciary needs and interventions at the national and state level. In his opening remarks, the chairman clarifies the intervention made by the minister on the ongoing projects for judiciary, as he stresses the importance of the different arms of government.
Many people seem to misunderstand this. There is truly what is called the principle division of labor. It's also what is called separation of powers. Nigeria is operating a constant democracy. So we have three arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. But none of the three arms of government is
in his response, the minister says provision has already been made in the supplementary budget for the judiciary, as criticisms will not stop him from supporting the judiciary.
It is in the appropriation law, not that I just on my own, they put out in my pocket and put out money to give to body of budget. No, it's a very and it was in the budget and was submitted to National Assembly, and National Assembly approved it. I will not miss this opportunity I have to contribute to the growth of the legal.
On the Nigerian Bar Association, the minister criticizes its leadership for failing to defend the rule of law.
MBA today is talking about state of emergency rivers. Why? Because the state government promised them to host the annual general conference. Now there's no government to give the money. Now they have not said, oh, we don't support the emergency.
From the FCTA, the minister's convoy hit the road to inspect ongoing projects from the Appeal Court building, among others. He says he is confident of the project's completion ahead of President Bola Tinubu's second-year anniversary.
The remains of the former spokesman to former President Olusegun Obasanjo, Dr. Doyin Okupe, has been committed to Mother Earth after a burial service held at the Wesley Methodist Cathedral, Akeson Road, Iperu Remo, his hometown in Ikenne local government area of Ogun State. Dignitaries, which include the Ogun State Governor, Mr. Dapo Abiodun, and others who attended the funeral service, described him as an astute politician, image maker, and a patriot who has lived a life of purpose for the development of his fatherland.
What Doyin was a true prince. He was noble, a true blue blood. You know, they say a prince does not fight like a slave. You will not see anybody fighting anyone like a slave. He was a warrior. He fought many battles, and he fought till the end. He was very ebullient, very cheerful, always smiling. He was extremely slow to anger. As a matter of fact, in the last probably 40-odd years that I've known him, I never knew Doyin to shout at anyone. He was extremely cerebral. He was kind. He was humble. He was generous.
To family members, the late Doyin Okupe remained an enigma, a father and a mentor, and shall be greatly missed by all.
He was a great man. He was a man of impact. He loved all of us, his children. He was a wonderful, God-fearing man. He loved Jesus. He was a good friend as well. There are so many things to miss about him. I cannot capture it into words, but he lived a great life. He fought well and he finished life well, and I'm so proud of him. And we, his children, are happy that I'm privileged to have had a great father in Dr. Doyin.
We say, may his soul rest in perfect peace. Well, we head over now to Will Ibong in Lagos for business news.
Thank you, Gloria. Now, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, Mr. Tayo Aduloju, has endorsed the federal government's decision to exempt pharmaceutical products from import duties, stating that the move will enhance market competitiveness following the withdrawal of U.S. funding for pharmaceuticals. Speaking with reporters in Abuja, Mr. Aduloju, however, emphasizes the need for strict monitoring to prevent the influx of counterfeit drugs.
If you look at our cost burden on healthcare, the drug component is huge. And at a time where our sector, the health sector, which heavily driven by USAID funding, is now drying up, it makes practical sense to not make this a high cost burden on the country. And so the zero tariff allows you to bring in price competitive, drug supplies to meet our requirements at a time like we noted where USAID support, and its largest support was in healthcare, is no longer available. And so we think that there's a logic to that alignment between post-USAID exit funding of healthcare sector in Nigeria and zero tariff drug incentives. We think ultimately localizing key components of the pharmaceutical value chain for essential drugs is an important next step to catalyze. It makes sense to use this crisis to go beyond the zero tariff drug imports to actually catalyzing the local pharmaceutical and drug value chains.
Now, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has named Mr. Tony Elumelu, founder of Heirs Holding and chairman of United Bank for Africa, UBA, to its advisory council on entrepreneurship and growth. The council, convened by IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva, comprises global business leaders, policymakers, and academics focused on shaping policies that foster innovation, enhance resource allocation, and address regulatory barriers to entrepreneurship. Mr. Elumelu, a strong advocate for African entrepreneurship, has empowered over 25,000 entrepreneurs through his philanthropic foundation since 2015. The IMF emphasizes that its inclusion ensures Africa's entrepreneurial potential remains central to global economic policies. Now we head to the domestic equities market, which rebounded in today's trading session, which is the final day ahead of the Muslim holidays next week. Mini John Mekwa brings the highlights of today's performance.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, in a surprising move, we would say, the NGX went from a negative intraday to a positive close at the end of Friday's trade, and it's mostly because of the figures, all of them except for Zenith. So we see Zenith here, it's the only negative at 1.67%, while the biggest gainer today is GTCO, more than 7%. We see investors favoring that stock. Now, when we look at the sectors, we see this reflects there. We see that banking is up more than 1% today, 1.28%. Consumer goods also recovered from yesterday, but oil and gas is still lagging behind right there. So at the close of trade, some of those losses for the week seem to have been gained. 148 billion added to the market cap, but it hasn't taken us away from the 66 trillion, and we're still on that 105,000 level, while the oil share index went up 0.23%. So for this long holiday, because there'll be no market on Monday and Tuesday, we're going to have the bull there at the floor of the NGX.
And that's a wrap on business. It's back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you so much, Will. Rescue operations are ongoing to find survivors hours after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit Mandalay, Myanmar's second largest city and commercial hub, leaving at least 144 people dead, many injured, and destruction in its trail. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Hundreds of people are feared dead in Myanmar and Thailand after a powerful 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck on Friday, toppling buildings across the two countries. The epicenter was 16 kilometers northwest of the city of Sagaing at a depth of 10 kilometers, sending strong tremors that were felt as far as southwest China and Thailand. At least 81 construction workers are missing after an unfinished high-rise building collapsed hundreds of miles away in Bangkok. There have been reports of roads buckling in the capital of Nau Pitor, and the country's military government has declared a state of emergency in 6 regions. The earthquake struck near Mandalay, which has a population of around 1.5 million people. A second quake struck 12 minutes after the first. Aid agencies are now scrambling to assess the humanitarian needs in Myanmar and work out how to respond.
There have already been several times what is called external management, interim administration.
Vladimir Putin has suggested that Ukraine should temporarily be placed under UN control to elect what he called a more competent government. It is the latest attempt by the Russian president to challenge the legitimacy of the Kyiv government. Ukraine accused Putin of proposing crazy ideas to delay further movements towards a peace deal, being championed by US President Donald Trump. The White House insisted Ukraine's governance would be decided by its constitution and people.
Today, my cabinet colleagues and I met to discuss Canada's response to the latest developments in the trade crisis.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has said that Canada's old relationship with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over. Speaking to reporters in Ottawa after a cabinet meeting, Mr. Carney said Canadians must fundamentally reimagine our economy in the face of US President Donald Trump's tariffs. He said Canada would respond with retaliatory tariffs that will have maximum impact on the US.
President Trump again imposed unjustified tariffs on our nation in violation of our existing trade agreements. We will respond forcefully. Nothing is off the table to defend our workers and our country. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over.
Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha are visiting the US Bidu-Fik space base on Greenland's northwestern coast. Because of its location at the top of the world, it supports missile warning, missile defense and space surveillance missions. The trip has been scaled back from original plans to tour the island more widely after a row with the governments of Greenland and Denmark over a lack of invitation. US President Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened to take over the Danish semi-autonomous territory. Both Greenland and Denmark's governments have rejected the calls, and an opinion survey from January suggests a vast majority of Greenlanders are against the idea too. Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa has appointed a new army chief ahead of planned protests called by a group of war veterans who want to force the president to resign. Emmanuel Matutu takes over with immediate effect. President Mnangagwa has faced calls from his former supporters to step down, citing mismanagement and corruption. And King Charles has been seen in public for the first time since he went to hospital after experiencing temporary side effects from his cancer treatment. He left his London residence Clarence House on Friday to spend the weekend at his Highgrove estate in Gloucestershire. He cancelled a trip to Birmingham on medical advice after spending a short period of time in hospital on Thursday. The palace has not provided details on what the recent side effects were. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks indeed, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. With barely a month to the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations, the Confederation of African Football, CAF, has announced Egypt as the new host earlier today, following the withdrawal of original host Cote d'Ivoire. Now, Cote d'Ivoire earlier this week informed CAF it will be unable to play host to the competition due to unforeseen circumstances. The Egyptian Football Association and the Egyptian government had previously submitted a bid to host the competition. The tournament, which will involve Nigeria's Flying Eagles, will be played on April 27th through April 18th. Let's turn to club football now, where Pep Guardiola says he's looking beyond trying to extend a remarkable run in the FA Cup by reaching the semi-finals for his 7th consecutive season. He's set to travel to Bournemouth on Sunday for a tough 6-round clash at the Vitality Stadium. The squad returned from international duty this week ahead of the final months of the season, with 9 more English Premier League matches remaining along with FA Cup campaign.
Yeah, when we achieved the record last season, the 6th time in a row semi-final, and most of the time we played semi-final with the very, very bad conditions after Champions League game. It was difficult to deal, but arriving there, that means how important is this competition. So the most all one is so nice, the FA Cup, so that's why we took seriously, like we took in the past the Carabao Cup, winning 4 in a row, so could not be otherwise, you know. So it's what you have to do. The results we don't know, but take seriously is what you have to do. And of course, with the season we have, to come back to Wembley to play the semi-final, to try to reach, you know, the final would be nice.
And finally, on sports, this is the former heavyweight world champion Deontay Wilder. He will return to the ring against the relatively unknown Tyrell Hendon on June 27th in Kansas. Wilder was once the most feared puncher in the world boxing and held the WBC title from 2015 to 2020. The 39-year-old American, who was defeated by Tyson Fury in an electric trilogy bout, has won 43 fights with 42 knockouts, 4 losses and 1 draw. But that's your Sports News tonight. I am Kelly. Egi gets back to you today.
And the main news again. The immediate past head of service of River State, Mr. George Nweke, has said that he was not pressured to resign on March the 24th this year, but was led by his conscience instead. President Bola Tinubu has condemned killings of traveling hunters in Edo State and directed a thorough investigation into the incident. The Kano State Police Command has banned all Durbar activities during the 2025 Eid al-Fitr Salah festivities, citing security concerns. And at least 144 people have died in Myanmar after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake felt by Thailand and other neighboring countries. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you.